I just wanted to just take a couple of minutes of everybody's time, please. Our share this morning has been sponsored. Nishmas. So what I want to be able to just tell us, it's always good for everybody to know a little bit about where the people come from who we are speaking about and learning in their merit. And, I think that it is important for us, especially to understand as Jews, where we are really all over the world. And Iris, I don't know how you would say it, Victoria, please correct me, but was actually born in Gibraltar. And as she says, as Victoria says, and Victoria's a daughter-in-law, says that it's very hard to put some words together, but there's a small example of one of the letters that they received about her from one of the dialysis team from the hospital where she went to. For the last 7 years, she was on 4 hourly dialysis sessions 3 times a week. And even though each dialysis session left her absolutely battered, she would always find the strength to smile and give a kind, loving word or piece of advice. Her essence up to her last breath was one of giving to others from her heart, from the heart, and in all senses of the word. Despite the physical effects of dialysis, she always went and returned from the sessions with a smile. And this is a letter that was received and to her son Michael, and it says, "My condolences to you and your family. I appreciate that there's nothing one can say that will make things easier during this time. So my words that follow are not written for here and now, but for the future when things get better and you are ready to see the admiration individuals like me had for her and for your mother, I will add. It goes without saying that she was both a lovely and special character. I remember from the many things, the poems she recited, conversations where she imparted her wisdom to me, amongst other things. Above all, one thing stands out: her fighting spirit, coupled with a strong and positive mentality / character. I strongly believe that if one is to fulfill their life's potential and make the best of life, we need to have those qualities she had. For example, like I told her, other than a professional athlete with youth by their side and the best medical care around them, who would have left a hospital around a week later after breaking their hip, or come back from the brink several times against all odds? Only Iris. This is an example to all of us with all the beautiful qualities that she exhibited. However, I would like to add that she was blessed to have such a caring family. From what I saw and experienced, she could not have asked for a better family around her. You were all there at any time of the day to fulfill her wishes. She will be sorely missed." And what a beautiful way to have people remember you. And I can tell you, when you go to Gibraltar, it's a very small little place. So everybody knows everybody. And even when our daughter Naomi had a cesarean, the doctors, if you can believe, imagine asking the doctor, "My mother's flying in from London to be with me through the cesarean," and it was some Gedalia. So she can only leave in the morning, and they scheduled her cesarean for right at the end of the day, so that her mother could fly in to be with her. This is the community, this is the place that you live in. And so when people, your doctors and the people around, saw who you and your families are, they really knew who you really are. So Victoria, to you and all your family, Chaim Rochel, thank you for allowing us. Thank you for sponsoring the share. It should be really an aliyah for the neshama. And in Mirz Hashem, we can all share and learn from everyone who goes through things, who smile, and to observe, and just to see what a Kiddush Hashem that actually has made. So a very beautiful thing. And Rochel, we're going to hand over to you. Thank you, everybody, for your patience.
Okay. So the neshama should have an aliyah, and the family should have comfort. And Mashiach should come back to us and comfort all of us. Be'ezrat Hashem. You know, whenever we hear about someone who passed and we hear about their beautiful traits and we imitate them. So in Shamayim, in Gan Eden, in the place of souls where they are, they give them a yashakayach. They give them like a mazel tov. And they say, you got another mitzvah. Because so-and-so just heard about how you were and chose to learn from that and imitate and copy you. And so it goes on your credit. And it goes to the family who's sponsoring the shir, because we would not have heard, even though really we could say nice things about every Jew who passed, but we wouldn't have heard the story had not they sponsored the shir. So thank you very much for sponsoring the shir. So we're entering into the 3 weeks. Next week on Sunday is Tanis, 17th of Tammuz. And so we all begin to become a little bit more pensive. Believe it or not, it's 11 weeks till Rosh Hashanah. How crazy is that? Because once the 3 weeks starts, the 3 weeks is then ends, and then the 7 weeks begin of comfort, and then it's Rosh Hashanah. So we're a little bit before the 3 weeks, so we're basically 11 weeks before Rosh Hashanah. This year has 11, a little bit less, even 10 and a half weeks to go. So we are going to make the most of this time. Be'ezrat Hashem. Let's learn where, I don't remember, I asked Rebbetzen Dov if we already learned this, and she might have sounded familiar, but it doesn't matter because every year we have to learn the same parak of Tehillim, Prakim of Tehillim in the 3 weeks. So we're going to do parak 137, Al Naras Bavel, parak 137, Kuf Lamed Zayin. All right. So now the Jewish people we've been through a lot. Have you noticed? And we go through a lot. We continuously go through a lot. Privately, personally, nationally. There's a lot going on. In this week's parsha, last week's parsha, this week's parsha, in the Torah, all of the difficulties that we have in terms of leadership and people who, in our first Gilgal as a nation, in our first time we were a nation, we were having a hard time receiving the leadership of Moshe Rabbeinu and understanding what that means to have a king, because Moshe Rabbeinu was a king. Okay, and now we look back, we say, "Ay, halavai, we should have Moshe Rabbeinu." And we will, Be'ezrat Hashem, we will have Moshe Rabbeinu again. Moshe Rabbeinu is Mashiach. And so we know that we've been through 4 exiles. We've really been through 8 exiles, but you don't know the others. The first exile was Egypt, then Babylon, Iran, Persia, Greece, Rome, and then Yishmael, and now we're in the Galus of the Erev Rav. That's a very, very hard Galus, the Galus of the Erev Rav that we're in right now. We're not going to talk about that, but what I will tell you, for those of you who understand what I just said, who understand what does it mean, the Galus, the exile of the Erev Rav. And the Erev Rav are leaders who want to destroy Judaism and substitute it for something else. And right now, we're in that galus, we're in that exile, and it's the harshest of all the exiles because it's a galus of within, a galus from within our own. So when we learn now, Al Naras Bavel, Parakuf Lamed Zayin, in your mind, I want you to translate this into that which is we're living through right now. And I'm not going to feel comfortable being openly descriptive of what this is, but you have to use your minds now, ladies. use your minds to see what I'm talking about, to see how this is talking about the current situation in planet Earth, the current situation here in Eretz HaKodesh, Eretz Yisrael. So now, this parak of Tehillim, like very few in Tehillim, does not have an introductory word or words. We know that we've been learning introductory words like Lamanatseach, Mizmor David, Shir Lamalos, Shir Hamalos. This one jumps straight in. Now, if you learn Tehillim, and we've been learning Tehillim already for a long time, so you know that the Tehillim that we jump straight in without any introduction are strong. They're fierce. Here, the David HaMelech is telling us, now he said this whole parak of Tehillim prophetically. Why? Because David HaMelech lived before the destruction, before the building of the first Beis HaMikdash. He lived before anything. And he's seeing in prophecy the building of Zion of Eretz Yisrael, the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, the first exile, the fourth exile he sees, and then he sees the final Mashiach coming. That's all that he's seeing in this parak of Tehillim. And he's giving us our like marching orders of how to survive. So where were we when we said this Tehillim? Al Naharot Bavel. We were sitting by the edge of Bavel. Bavel is Babylon. Babylon is current-day Iraq. We were sitting by the waters of current-day Iraq. The Tigris, the Euphrates, whatever river they put us at. And Sham Yashavnu, only there we were able to sit down for the first time since being exited from Israel and marched, like the death march in the Germans. We were marched to Bavel. And then, only then we sat and we realized what happened to us. Gam bachinu, and that's when we started to cry. You know that there are so many people who are not able to cry over tragedies. They have to disassociate and disconnect and strengthen themselves because they can't handle the emotion. And sometimes that's good. But then sometimes at a certain point, the body needs to release and the person begins to cry. And the crying can be healing. So B'Zachrenu Etzion, this first crying that the Mishorer is talking about here is telling us that we just realized what happened to us. Rav Hirsch, Rav Shem Shamshon for Hirsch teaches that Kol Zman, as long as a person is very busy, even if a person is busy with, let's say, funeral arrangements or, whatever, a tragedy, but if they're busy, then their emotions disconnect. And only when the busyness is over and they sit is when the tears begin to come, which is why sitting Shiva is such a healing process, because the crying heals. Just like if you have something in your eye and you cry, it washes out the dust. So too, when a person has something in their heart and they cry, it helps the process. And so the Navi, the Mishorer, the David HaMelech is telling us that we were sitting and crying. Why? Because we just realized what happened to us. Now, this is a very typical scenario of people, again, who sometimes they don't realize what happened. Only in hindsight or looking back, they realize. For example, we've been through a very horrific year and a half. And only now looking back do we realize how traumatized and how fearful everyone was. So we symbolically hung up on the willow branches our musical instruments. Now, again, remember, that this is talking about a time when, after the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, there were Jews who survived that. The Jews who survived the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash were then exiled into Babylon, into Iraq. And when they were exiled, you can understand that they did not take with them much. How much can you take when you're running away? Certainly, they did not think to take with them their musical instruments. I can show you my tambourine in the corner there. I see that you're raffling off a tambourine. So the Jewish woman's instruments has generally been a tambourine or a drum, because that was what was written in Chumash Shmos, such that Miriam HaNeviah took tambourines and they made music by the splitting of the Red Sea. So, but they only took their musical instruments because they were going to redemption. And Miriam told them, take musical instruments, we're going to celebrate. But here's the opposite side of that. We were leaving the land of Israel, and we were not being redeemed, we were being exiled. So why would anyone take their musical instruments with them? And so there's two commentaries on this. I mean, there's a lot more, but two I want to mention. One is that indeed the Leviim packed along some of their musical instruments, hoping to see if they would come back soon to Israel. Why? Because after the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, the prophets, the Nevi'im, Yirmiyahu, Yeshayahu had told them, it's only going to be for 70 years. So you're going to come back. So there were Levi'im who said, I want to come back, and I'm going to take my instruments so that when we come back after 70 years, I'll be right away able to start celebrating. And so they took the musical instruments with them for the future, future. And there were some who say that the Babylonians indeed gave them instruments. And they said the next song, they said, we want to hear you. Kisham she'elunu shovenu divrei shir. Our captors, those who captured us, asked us to play music. And they said, and v'tolalenu, and those tormentors, those who tormented us, simcha, they asked us to make joyous music. Could you imagine? So what does this mean? It means that the Babylonians, Nebuchadnezzar, who exiled us, what did he want? Why did he exile us to his country and didn't kill us? Because he wanted to tap our manpower. He wanted Jews to be able to come and help his community, help his country. That's why actually many years earlier, they had exiled the cream of the crop of the Jews, the Rabbanim, the Tzaddikim, the politicians, the leaders, and the young, strong Jews. They exiled them to Bavel many years earlier. Why? Not like the Germans, Yamat Shemam. These Babylonians, they recognized our worth, and they said, we don't want to kill you, we want to utilize you. We want to use you to make our country great. And so what we want you to do right now is assimilate. So the pasuk says when the Babylonians asked the Jewish people to sing songs, and they gave us musical instruments, what they were saying is, we want you to consider this your home. We want you to get used to it here. We're going to be nice to you here. We're not going to torment you. We're not going to kill you. We want you to be comfortable. We want you to become citizens of the country. We want you to contribute. We want you to feel that you can actually contribute even culturally. Does that sound familiar? There are two ways to exile Jews. Either kill us and you exile us that way physically, or try to exile us spiritually. How do you exile us spiritually? You try to make us assimilate. And that's why the people who resist assimilation, even when they need to be in an exile country, but they resist assimilation, they have the ability to survive. Whereas look at the assimilation rate in the Jewish world in Chutz La'aretz, right? What do they say? If we have 14 million Jews in the world who identify as Jews, 11 million of those are assimilated. And we are part of the 3 million who are holding on holding on tight. Or, I heard those numbers in a different shiur, and I didn't research it myself. I'm just quoting. But whatever it is, we see how many intermarriages there are, and how much assimilation there is, and how much watering down of Judaism there is in the countries that are trying to destroy us, but with a smile. They're trying to destroy us, but in a nice way. Come celebrate with us, come to our parties, come to our cultural events, come to our museums, come to our whatever. And slowly, slowly lose your unique Jewishness and slowly, slowly adapt to the country that you're in. That's the first exile that we had here after Yetzias Mitzrayim, because of course we know the first exile was Egypt, but the first exile as a nation, right? Because when we went down to Egypt, we were not yet a nation. But the first exile as a nation was this exile that we're learning about now. And they wanted to assimilate us so that they could use us. They did not want to assimilate us because they thought we would have a better life. They wanted to assimilate us so that they could utilize us, that they could use us to enhance their own country. And that is always to our detriment. So they said, Shir lanu mishir Tzion, sing to us from the songs of Tzion. Sing us your music. You know that music is an international language. You know that we all know about music. We know I come from a very musical family. We know that music opens up the heart, opens up the mind. I remember years ago when we still had cassette tapes. For those of you who even remember what those are. Anyway, I had cassette tapes, which I still have probably someplace, of music that now you probably could get it on the internet. I mean, on the YouTube. Music that when you put it on your headphones, it will open up your mind to think smarter and to be more productive. So you can listen to certain kinds of music and actually be trying to figure out a mathematical problem. And the music you're hearing you're hearing the music, but it's sort of like in the background, and it helps your mind. It attaches certain neurons in the brain. It fires them up so that you can actually do math and science on a higher level and in a deeper way. So, yeah, I don't know what that means, the Mozart effect, but okay. This was not Mozart that I was listening to. This was created music specifically created for speeding up the brain and opening up the mind and opening up the heart.
But the beat is the beat that is in utero for the baby, and
So
Mozart happened to have plugged into that. So anybody who creates music has to connect to the same beat, which Mozart naturally understood, and they call it the Mozart effect.
Oh, I'm going to have to research that. That sounds very interesting. Okay, good. We all have to have that. I know that this particular music that I was listening to, which didn't sound like music, it wasn't the kind that you could sing, but it had certain, a certain rhythm, a certain beat, and certain notes they were playing. I see that Shoshana says that she was a chess champion. Let's see what you just said. Ah, that's so interesting. Shoshana said chess tournaments while listening to music. Okay. Anyway, that's what they wanted us to do. They wanted us to use music, which means now I'm expanding music. It's not just music. They said music, but they also meant any cultural activity, any pleasure that you enjoy. Now, they wouldn't say to us to use the pleasures like in the parsha. In this week's parsha, Bilam and Balak, they try to curse us. Baruch Hashem, they can't. And so what do they do instead? They try to get us to sin, and they actually succeeded in that. They sent a bunch of women who were very, very immodest, and these women tempted the Jewish people and the Jewish men, and we got into big trouble. So the Babylonians, they were smarter than that. They didn't say, come and join us in our immodest activities. They said, come join us in music, in beautiful things. And in fact, we're interested to hear your music. We're interested to hear Shir Tzion. We're interested to hear your music. So we'll share. We'll teach you our music. You'll teach us your music. And so a person who has just seen destruction, think about people who lived through the Holocaust. There were several different reactions to that the survivors had. Some of the people who were very, very strong, they said, I have a cousin, they're all in the next world already. I have a distant cousin. She became the mother of the Rebbetzen. They should all be a good debate for all of us. And she survived the war. She was a 19-year-old girl, and she was a vision chassid from the home, and her only desire was to build a family. So she was in the DP camps looking for someone. They were making shidduchim there. And she just says to whoever was doing this, I want a man who's a Hasidic man who wants to build a family. And that's how she met and married her husband in a DP camp, somebody who had lost a wife and 5 children. He also just wanted to rebuild, to spite the Yamach Shemam. And they got married, and they had my friend in the DP, my teacher in the DP camp in Germany. She was born. So you had those people who were saying, "I'm going to fight back with whatever I can do," and that means rebuilding Judaism. Then you had those who ran the other direction and said, "I want to be the furthest away from Judaism, and I want to forget everything and just assimilate." We don't judge. We can't possibly judge, but. And then there were those who tried to, do a little bit of everything. So here, the reaction of our first exile was, now people read this pasuk wrong, so I'm going to read it according to Rav Hirsch. Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch was a commentator who was absolutely rooted in grammar. So as opposed to the Chassidish commentaries, who take things out of context and play with words. Rav Hirsch doesn't. So he says the way that you read this pasuk according to the Trup is, the pasuk says that the captors, the Babylonians said, assimilate, sing songs. You teach us your recipes, I'll teach you my recipes, teach us your holidays, we'll teach you our holidays. And in that way, they'll get us to water down on Judaism. That's what they said. And what did we respond? We responded, Eich. Eich means, are you crazy? How is that possible? What? You just destroyed us. You just killed us. You just killed our Beis HaMikdash. Or you disabled it. And you want us now to assimilate with you? Like, why would you think that we would even consider that? Why should we be like you? I tell you that we learned, we say this over and over again, that that which gave the Germans, Yamach Shemam, the most fury was when they were just about to kill a Jew and they were taunting him. And the Jew said back to them, I would rather be me than be you. I would rather be a Jew about to be killed than you, because you're not even a human. You're not even an animal, because animals don't kill for pleasure. You're something else. I don't know what you are. But when Jews would say that, but I would rather be me than be you. And that would drive them crazy. So what? How? What? You want us to assimilate with you? Nashir Hashem, we should sing God's songs al admat nechar, on the land of the enemy. Now again, many people mistranslate this pasuk and they think it means, how can we sing the song of God on enemy territory? No, it means, what? Exclamation point. How you want us to sing the song of God in the land of our destroyers? And the truth is that response was given more to themselves than to their enemies. It was a chizuk for themselves. To say to themselves, look at that. They kill my this, they kill my that. They exiled us, they destroyed the Beis HaMikdash, and now they want us to assimilate into their culture. Why would I want to assimilate into a culture of destruction, of disgusting? Why would I want to do that? Just because they're powerful? No. Lions are also powerful. I don't want to be a lion. Earthquakes are also powerful. I don't want to be an earthquake. Why should I want to be you? So it was mechazik. It helped the Jewish people to say these words. So now you know, of course, the Medrash that we learned. We say it every year. Tisha B'Av, there's a kina on this, so that they try to force us, whip us. You know, if you can't get the Jews to do something nicely, then try to kill them, whip them, hit them, or hit their wives in front of them, so that the wife is crying and screaming, and I'm telling you to do something. Chas Hashem, hit the children. Chas Hashem. Hashem should protect all Jewish people. So the response of the Levium were to cut off their fingers. They physically mutilated themselves so that they could not play musical instruments. They walked around with bloody fingers so that they could not play instruments, rather than give in. And they hung their instruments up and they said, I'm not going to touch this. I brought it with a hope for 70 years from now, but for you, I'm not giving you, I'm not contributing to you. Okay, now listen, we are supposed to be a light to the nations. We're supposed to be contributing to the world, and we have contributed tremendously to the world in every area of life. But we're not supposed to be contributing to a society that the society is committed to immorality and destruction. That was the big mistake of Lot. Lot went to stone, thinking, okay, I'm supposed to be a light to the world. I know I know my brother-in-law and cousin those teachings, so I'll teach them. No, you can't contribute to a society that does not want to be moral. We have to withdraw from such a society. And there's a very fine line between, because people and societies are two different things. And that's why when the captors, that's why the Tehillim is saying they were not talking to the Babylonian people. Because, you know, people by nature, the nature of regular, you know, Joe Schmo, John Doe, Plony Almoni, the nature of regular people is to be good. That's the nature of regular people. The nature of leadership is to be corrupt. That we have since the beginning of time. And here the parak is talking about leadership. The Shovenu means the people who captured us. And that with them we don't cooperate. And therefore the Levium chopped off their fingers, and the Levium refused to teach the music to their children, and they died because of that. So they were killed in Babylon, in Bavel. Levium who knew the music of the Beis HaMikdash were murdered. And those who remembered the music of the Beis HaMikdash did not teach it to their children. It was a lost art. Some say that some of the songs that we sing now, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, the Yamim Noraim, some of the tunes that we sing as we bring in the Kaddish of Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, that special tune, Kol Nidre. Some say that those melodies are Beis HaMikdash melodies. Some say there's certain Sephardic melodies, old ones, not the ones that sound Arabic, but the old chants are Beis HaMikdash chants, like how they say slichos. Some of the tunes from slichos could be Beis HaMikdash. But otherwise we lost that. And we lost it on purpose, that it shouldn't fall into the klipa. You know, the Chazal tells, the Vilna Gaon tells us this also, that every part of our serving in the Beis HaMikdash was copied by the Goyim. You know that the Christians, they copied the costumes of the Kohanim and the Kohen Gadol. They copied those. And so their priests wear all kinds of costumes, trying to copy idea of the priest has a special garment. And all their, their popes, Yimach Shemam, all of them, they wear certain garments to copy the Beis HaMikdash garments. They know how to read Chumash, they know how to read Meforshim, everything's in English now. So, and they make sacrifices. They have their way of doing sacrifices now with their Christian church services, etc. They have music, the organs that they have in their thing, in their churches. And so everything they try to copy from us, every holiday that they have is a mimicking of one of the Jewish holidays. You just go through the whole, and so we know that Islam is also based on, that's why they daven 5 times a day, because he learned about Yom Kippur that they daven on the holiest day of the year 5 times a day. So normally we do 3 times a day, but on Yom Kippur 5 times a day. So they incorporated that into their way of life. All of the Judaism has been copied, but one thing has not been copied, and that is the music of the Beis HaMikdash, because we don't have it. We even gave it up. We relinquished it. We forfeited it so that it wouldn't be copied by the Goyim. So they make up their own music, whatever, but it's not our music. Here, this pasuk you all know by heart because they sing it at every wedding. And of course, they sing it without the tune of the Beis HaMikdash. If I forget Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim does not just mean Yerushalayim HaKodesh. Yerushalayim means everything holy. That's why Yerushalayim is written here in the pasuk without a yud, because it doesn't mean just Yerushalayim, the city. It means everything of shleimus, everything of holiness. If we forget holiness, we forget Yerushalayim, and of course Yerushalayim HaKodesh. Tishkach Yemini, then we should forget how to operate in this world. Yemini means my right hand, as you all know. And what's his name? Matisyahu made up the song that the whole world knows the song, right? What did he call Jerusalem, right? So it means I will forget. If I forget Yerushalayim, I will. It's like I'm taking a shavua, chas v'shalom, like an oath, and saying, if I leave my spiritual roots, then I don't want to be successful in anything. Now it's an interesting thing because we see that people who've left their Judaism, Jews who've left their Judaism, they're searching for meaning in life. That's why they made up communism and socialism and Zionism, and because they left their Judaism. And you see that every one of those isms doesn't last more than 70 years. So Tishkach Yemini, I want to forget, or I will forget my skill, my success. So who is still here in the Jewish world? Who is still here? Who still identifies as Jewish in this generation? Who's still succeeding in Judaism? And who's still thriving? Here's the religious world. And the conservative world, the reform world, maybe they consider themselves thriving because they don't care about assimilation, they don't care about intermarriage, so they'll consider themselves thriving culturally, perhaps. But they know that they're not Jewish. Deep down inside. The assimilated ones are not. And so we see this pasuk, when we forgot Yerushalayim, we just lost our success in those things that really matter. You know the story, there's a very cute story that they say here in Yerushalayim HaKodesh, that there was a guy who lived in Meisharim. He had crazy long payas, mamish down to his knees. Crazy long till his knees. Crazy long. And they said to him, what do you have such crazy payas for? Like, you don't have to do that. Why? So he said like this. He said, if I have long payas to my knees, then my kids will have shorter payas to their shoulders. And my grandchildren will have shorter payas to their ears. And my great-grandchildren will have shorter payas to behind their ears. And maybe my great-great-great-grandchildren won't shave off their hair and make it crazy. The idea being, every generation, sometimes we see that. I want to lose my ability to communicate. What does it mean my tongue should stick to the top of my mouth? Because the simple words means my tongue should stick to the top of my mouth. What does that mean? It means I will not be able to communicate. if I don't remember you. And here the word eskerechi is written in an unusual grammar. It's like a affectionate way. If I don't think that Yerushalayim / the Torah / Judaism / God, if I don't put that as my highest priority, then I will lose my ability to succeed in this world. So look at this beautiful country that I live in, that I'm privileged to live in, and some of you, I see a whole bunch of people here from Eretz Yisrael. We have Sfat, we have this down the south, we have Yerushalayim, we have Beit Shemesh, we have a lot of cities here with us, including London and including Gateshead and including, I forgot the other one.
Gibraltar, Johannesburg, we're doing well.
We have international. I don't know if any of the Americans are on. Oh, I forgot to look to see if my Americans are on. The early birds. So, the joke about living in this beautiful, wonderful, excellent Eretz Yisrael, the joke is that in every country in the world, they always wanted Jews in the government to make sure the finances worked and the justice system worked, and all of those systems are working. There's always Jews. And even when there were kings, there was always a court Jew who made sure that everything was working, because the Jews are the smartest. And here in our own country, we're a funny country. It's true that we're great in terms of the individual private sector, technology and ways, right? GPS and computers, and we did everything, right? Try to boycott Israel, you can't have a cell phone, you can't have a computer, you can't have x-ray machines, you can't. But the government, we see, if we're not putting the Torah as our priority, then we forget how to talk. We forget we're not successful. This government was a tool in order to get us to the place where we're at right now. It was a tool that Hashem chose. Rav Kook has a whole philosophy about this. Hashem had to choose a klipa first before he allowed us to develop into a country. But it won't last if the Torah is not primary. You cannot exchange the Torah for something else. You can enhance, you can be a Zionist if you're a Torah Zionist. But if you're trying to exchange, trying to kick out the Torah and bring in only secular Zionism, that doesn't work. And we see that all of those people who was past prime ministers who were secular, their kids made Yerida, their kids are living all over. They don't live here. They left. Zionists are leaving. Why? Because if you don't have Torah, why are you coming to Israel? Why would you live here? We live here because Hashem and Torah tells us this is our land. But if you don't believe that, then what are you going to be here for? There's just going to be, you'll have an inner conflict with the Arabs. You'll have an inner conflict with the Western world. So who is making Yerushalayim primary? And again, Yerushalayim does not just mean the city that I'm very privileged to have lived in all of these years. But Yerushalayim HaKodesh means everything Torah, everything godly. If that's not your primary, if that's not the center of your life, to the point that it is the center of your life, that's the percentage of life you have. So the point where it's not the center of your life, it's a percentage of failure, of lack of success, of feeling empty, of feeling unfulfilled, of having problems. The percentage of the focus of God in your life, the higher that percentage, the higher you're living. So all of this was a conversation we were having with ourselves, and now we turn to God. Pasuk Zayin. Zachar Hashem livnei Edom et Yom Yerushalayim. Now, David HaMelech is now seeing the next exile, or the final exile, or one of the final exiles of Edom, because Edom didn't at the time of the exile of Bavel. Edom was a very small country; it was not yet a world power. At the time of the destruction of the first base of Mikdash, Edom was not a world power. So, but David HaMelech is looking forward and says, Hashem, there's going to be an Edom, and they're going to do much worse to us than the Babylonians did, because the Babylonians, as I said, wanted to use us. They wanted us to live. They wanted to milk us of our culture. The Edom wants to kill us, destroy us, not just assimilate us. Yimach Shemo, he went back in the, in the genealogy. If you were third generation Jew, third generation back, in other words, if you were converted 2 generations ago, they would kill you anyway, because you had Jewish blood in you. They want to kill. So Zachar Hashem livnei Edom et Yom Yerushalayim. Ha'omrim aru ad hayasod ba. So the Mefarshim says, and Rashi says something very interesting also. The Mefarshim say that even though Edom at that point was not a world power, but to the destruction of the first Beis HaMikdash, Edom sent messengers to Bavel saying, whatever, if you're going to destroy them completely. Aru, destroy them completely. Ad hayasod, till the very foundation. That was Edom's advice. Now, Baruch Hashem, that didn't happen. It'll never happen. We are here forever. Edom is going to be gone, and Bavel's gone, and Iran is gone, and they're going to all be gone. We're going to be forever. But remember that Edom taught us, the world, that if you want to destroy something, you dig it out by its roots. That's why the roots have to be so strong. If you look like in our parsha, right? Look at what Bilam said as a blessing. You see what he wanted to say as a curse. Look at what Edom said as a curse. You see how we need to access that as a blessing. They said, root them out. Destroy from the very, very foundation. That means destroy the family, destroy the rabbis, destroy the Torah, not just destroy the building of the Beit HaMikdash, uproot it, gouge it out. And we have to make sure that our roots are so strong, so strong. I told you that one of the ladies who listens to the shir, her mother and father were not happy when she became Balas Tshuva. I was privileged to teach her when she was in high school. And I still lived in America. I was teaching in high school, in Baal Shuvah High School, one of the greatest places on planet Earth, Ezra Academy. And so one of the mothers called me and she gave me a Misha Beirach, whoa. She said to me, if you teach my daughter Torah, I said, why did you enroll her in a Jewish school? The principal always would tell the parents, I know you're not observant. We're going to try our best to make your kids observant. And all the parents said, my kid will never go for that. They said that to themselves. And Baruch Hashem, they all did. So one of these women once called me up. Oh, she gave me an earful. And how she gave me. And then she said, and she's going to swear on the Sefer Torah. She was so, she's threatening me. As if she considers the Sefer Torah so holy. I'm trying to teach her kid Torah. She says she's going to swear on the Chumash or on the Sefer Torah that her third daughter she's not going to send her youngest kids yeshiva. If I don't if I don't stop pushing her, the ones who are in the school already, if I don't stop teaching them, then she's going to swear in front of witnesses she's not going to let her youngest kid go to yeshiva. But if I'm not so successful with that other kid, she'll let the younger kids go to yeshiva. Whatever, I don't remember. This is going back 30 years at least. 30 years, 25, 26, 27 years. At least I wasn't, 27 years of working on your character traits makes me a more patient person. Probably I answered her back. And I don't know what I said to her, I don't remember. But whatever it was, of course, Baruch Hashem, her daughter did come to yeshiva. Her daughter just had her second child now. And Baruch Hashem just made I think maybe even today's a bris. That could be. I'll have to check, see. Maybe that's why I'm saying the story. Anyway, so that daughter that she swore she's not going to go to yeshiva, she went to yeshiva, she became frum, came out, and she's now. Anyway, so that same mother called me up a few years later. And she was saying to me, please, get my grandchildren into yeshiva. Her oldest son, who she didn't send to yeshiva, is sending his kids to public school. And now that her own kids are observant, she sees the beauty of it. She wants me to try to figure out a way to get her grandchildren into yeshiva. In other words, the root has to be so strong. And the root is the family. The root is Emunah. If the Edomites said root them out, destroy them from the root, we have to think, what is our root? And strengthen that. Shabbos is our root. Eretz Yisrael is our root. Kosher is the root. Roots, the roots of Judaism have to be so strong. Okay, now comes the last two psukim, or actually the last pasuk is probably the hardest pasuk in the whole Tehillim to teach. Actually, there's two hard psukim. This last one is. So first we say, Bas Bavel Hashduda Ashesh Yishalem Lachas Mulech Shagamatlan. This is a very understandable pasuk. Bavel, when we say Bas Bavel, Bas and Ben is like saying the Babylonians. Babylon. Hashduda, you're the one who was destroyed. You thought you were destroying us. Guess what? You were destroyed. And Rav Hirsch points out that the last success that Bavel had as a country to this very day, the last success they had was 2,500 years ago when they destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash. And since then, after they destroyed the first Beis HaMikdash, Babylon was captured. They were captured by Persia. Iran captured Iraq. Current day countries, Iran is Persia, Iraq is Babylon. Iran captured Iraq. They've been fighting ever since. For thousands of years, they've been fighting. Babylon, Babel never came back to itself. Iraq never came back to itself. What's his name? Saddam Hussein tried to revive Iraq and make it into a world power. And remember what happened to him? When they caught him, he looked like a subhuman. So Bavel, you think you destroyed us? Guess what? You're destroyed now. Anyone who destroys Jews gets destroyed. And that's for our enemies to know. And anyone who destroys Judaism tries to destroy, because you can't destroy Jews, you can't destroy Judaism. But if you try, you get destroyed. Look at the world. Spain, Germany, Portugal, Rome, Greece, everybody. Russia, all destroyed, all weakened, all taken from their pedestal and lowered. And not just that, but Ashrei Shiyasha. So Hashem destroys you, but Hashem is going to use other countries to destroy you. So Ashrei, how lucky is, fortunate is the country, Shiyashalem Lach, is Molech, Shagamatlan, who's going to pay you back what you did to us, they're going to pay you back the same thing. There's a rule that Hashem made in the world that's called Mida Keneged Mida. Mida Keneged Mida, we all know. Measure for measure. What you do comes back to you. What every country does to us comes back to them. And one of the biggest pleasures that we're going to have when Mashiach comes is to see the justice done in the world. If you read, I always tell you this, it's hard for me to teach you, it's hard for me to learn with you Kabbalah Shabbos, because the prakim are not so easy to learn. But one of the running themes in Kabbalah Shabbat is that even the trees and the mountains and the rivers will rejoice when Mashiach comes, because they will see Hashem do justice to the evil people in the world. Even nature will rejoice. Right now, you have, factories who are destroying the environment. You have construction sites that are destroying forests. And you have Arabs who are destroying, making fires and setting. We had just the other day in Har Nof. You know that we had in Har Nof? What's today? Thursday, I think Tuesday or Tuesday. Yeah. We had somebody went, they actually, because now there's cameras everywhere. They saw somebody taking fire and lighting behind Har Nof. You have a beautiful forest. We had a big fire there. They had to evacuate the bottom street in Har Nof. They had to evacuate people till they put out the fire. Baruch Hashem, they put it out. And so when even nature is furious at the way that the world is misusing the way that people are misusing the world. We have Shemitah coming up next year. In Shemitah, when you have to come, please, Hashem, we should all be able to stay here in Eretz Yisrael. We who are here should be able to remain here. And you who are not should be able to come. Shemitah year, the land is singing, the land is rejoicing because we don't plant, We let the land have Shabbos. A whole year, the land is singing in Shemitah. And it's growing wild, and all the bushes and everything is just, because the land and nature has also a neshama. Do you know, I learned a halacha yesterday. I must share this with you. I love sharing halachas. I just learned for the first time in my life. I learned a halacha like this. Let's say, there are certain, I learned this from Rav Shmuel Shmueli. He's an interesting person, Rav. He has a place, he used to have a place in Ben Yehuda Street. You could go and get all kinds of remedies from him. He's direct descendant from the Rambam. In 10 generations, he's 10th generation from the Rambam. So he was talking about the healing qualities of rosemary. You know what rosemary is? The bush rosemary, yeah. We have half of Harnov has, I don't know, rosemary grows very wild here and grows a lot in Harnov. So he said that he was talking about how rosemary, that the tea that you make, tea from rosemary, it's very, very healing. It strengthens a woman's cycle. It strengthens women's. It's a very good herb. So he was saying how you make the tea. He says you cut some rosemary off. So he said, but before you cut the rosemary, you have to ask permission. You have to say to the thing that you're about to cut. You have to say to the bush, please give me permission to cut a branch of yours. I'm not going to cut your whole bush off. Please give me permission to cut a branch of it so that I could use it. I'll make a bracha on you. So I could use it to make a tea to enhance my health. You have to talk to the bush and ask its permission, because you're going to kill part of it. So you can't just kill without, even though it was created to be used and to be eaten. But he said you have to first ask permission. I mean, it wants you to use it, because that bush or that food or that tree, that apple on the tree, its biggest thing is that a Jew should eat it with a bracha. But you have to ask permission. So Yehuda is talking about like Moshe Rabbeinu on the rock. He should have talked to the rock, hit the rock. He did talk to the rock a few times, whatever. So, but we have to finish. Bas Bavel, that means daughter of Bavel, the remnants of Bavel. You're going to be destroyed. And how lucky is the person who's going to show you Mida Keneged Mida? Ashrei she'ochez v'nipetz es onlayich halasama. And how fortunate is the person who's going to take your children and smash them on rocks. That's a hard thing for a Jew to say. And we say this parak all the time. What does it mean? How lucky is the person who's going to take your children and smash them on the rocks? So it means, so the Mefarshim tell us that the David Melchus didn't have he didn't express. If you look at Eicha, if you look at the book of Eicha, so Yirmiyahu Hanavi wrote Eicha. So he says in very gross detail all the different terrible things that happened to us. And one of them was, just like we had it in Egypt, and just like we had it now in the Churban B'Bayis Rishon, they took babies, and we had it in German, in Marshima. They took babies and they killed them in front of their parents' eyes to destroy the parents, to break the hearts of the parents. So there's a Mida Keneged Mida here also. Now we who are Rachmanim B'nei Rachmanim, we cringe when we say this pasuk. And David HaMelech cringed when he wrote this pasuk. But he wanted to make us understand. You see how we are cringing? They relished. The enemies of the Jewish people who killed Jewish babies, innocent, beautiful Jewish babies, relished. As we cringed, they relished. That's the difference between, right? That's what Leah, our Babi Leah said for Reuven. She said, Re'u, look Hashem, at the difference between my Bechor and my father-in-law's Bechor. Her father-in-law's Bechor was Esav. And her Bechor is Reuven, Tzaddik. Look at the difference between us and them. We say this when people make a siyum on a Talmud, on a volume of the Talmud. Now there are a lot of women who are doing this also. When people make a siyum on a volume of Talmud, one of the beautiful prayers that they say is, we run and they run. We run to do God's will. They run to all kinds of ridiculousness. We stay up, they stay up. We stay up to learn Torah, they stay up to do. I forgot all the nusach of the prayer, but it's the same contrast of we work, they work. We work so we can sustain our body, they work so they can, whatever we do, whatever. And when I say they, I don't mean Gentiles. I don't mean anyone who's not Jewish. I mean the ones who are consciously and by choice evil. People who are by choice evil, we would rather they're not enlivened. People who are by choice, not by circumstances and not by. Okay, so Hashem should bring us big Yeshuas. You know that there are certain prakim of Tehillim that we're going to stop saying, or we'll say them like just as a memory. This is going to be one of them. When Mashiach comes, we're going to be in such a different place. You know, Rabbanim and Tzaddikim are saying we're mamish any second. We're in the middle of crazy things happening in the world. I also want to tell you, don't be afraid. They're announcing all kinds of new corona things. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Don't do crazy things. Don't let them get you into fear. Nothing to be afraid. We're into a very good time right now, Be'ezrat Hashem. Hang in there. Stay alive. Stay firm. Stay connected.